Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtaka Shakti Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajacharya Ashtaka Shakti Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radha Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Yamunamaya Ki Jai. Gangamaya Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Angaranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Start with the introduction prayer on page 1. Omagana Kamandasya Gyana Jnana Adya Shaktuji Pamita Nyanata Sneshvile Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishnam Sakrita Nyanatutale Swayam Rupa Hada Maya Bhakti Svapati. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I have my respectful obeisances. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vandeham Shiguru Shiyuta Pada Kamalam Shiguna Vaismasnacha Shri Rupa Sagrata Chatam Sahagana Raganunat Navitam Tasa Jivam Savetam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishkasvanavspintams Cha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanata Goswami, as well as Raghunath Das and Raghunath Bhatta, Gopala Goswami, as well as Gopala Bhatta and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Avidya Acharya, Gadhar, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dino Jambando Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namo Sute. Oh my dear Krishna, you're the friend of the distress and the source of all of creation. You're the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapa Kancha Gorangi Radhe Vinsvat Panchasvare Vispanu Sute Devi Prananamame Hare Priye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of the king Vishbanu, and you are very dear to the Lord Krishna. Pancha kalpa tarupayascha kripa sindhu evascha patitanam parapayo vaishnavayo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Veta Gadhar, Shri Vasti Gaur Bhaktavinda. I Offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Veta, Gadhar, Sri Vasa, and all the others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are in chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. I believe we are starting at text 15 today. Yam hina vyatayante purusham purushara sabaha samaduka sukham dharam somitat vaya kalpate. Translation. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Text 16. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sata, ubayo api dristo nithas, ta anos tatvad dashipihi. Translation. Those who are seers of truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the existence there is no cessation. This the seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. Text 17. Avinashi tuta vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avayasyasya na kaschit kartum arati. Translation. Know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Text 18. Antavaktam imeteha nityasyukta sarina anashino prameyasya tasmad yurasya bharata. Translation. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata. Text 19. Yainam vitte hantaram yaschaina manyate hattam ubauto na vicento nayam hante na hanyante. He who thinks that the living entity is a slayer or that he is slain does not understand. One who is in the knowledge knows that the self slays not nor is slain. Text 20. Na jayanti mariate vakatachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana puya ajo nitya sasvato yam parano nahyante hanyamane sarari. Translation. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Text 21. Viravinashinam nityam yayinam ajam avadyayam katam sapurasya parta kam gati yati hantikam. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Text 22. Vashamasi drani vyataviyaha nirvani ganati naro parayani tata saryani vyaya charyaniyai anyani samyati navanidihi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old useless ones. Text 23. Nayanam chindanti sastrani, nayam dayati pavaka, nachayanam kilatayanti apo, nasasayati mayata. Translation. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapon, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by wind. Text 24. Achayado yam adyo yam, akiryo sasyo ivacha, nitya sarvakata satnanyur, achalo yam sanatana. Translation. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchanging, immovable, and eternally the same. Text 25. Avyakto yam achintyo yam, avkaro yam uchyate, tasmadevam viditvenyam, Nanusho Chintum Arashi. Translation. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Final text this evening, text 26. Atta chainam nitya jatam, nityam va manasye mitam, tatapi tvam mahabaho, nayam sochitum aryashi. Translation. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty arm. Returning to text 15. Text 15. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnada Ashram institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the Rounce order, sannyasi, is a painstaking situation, but one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyasi order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere. Even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or some of the beloved persons, Lord Chaitanya took sannyasi at the age of 24, and his dependent's young wife, as well as his old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause he took sannyasi and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Gonitai ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Translation. O best among the men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. That's the thing about living in this material world. There's always things that we're being disturbed by things, being distressed by things. Temperature's not right. It's too hot. It's too cold. food's, too salty or too sour, just doesn't taste good, or just all kinds of things that disturb us in this material world. But the pathway back home, back to Godhead, being eligible for liberation, it's one who can remain steady in their sadhana, remain steady on their pathway back to home, back to God. No matter what the material world throws at you, you can keep moving forward one step at a time. That's what it takes, determination, and not being disturbed by what's going on around you. And that's very hard to do because, for the most part, most of us are disturbed by our own minds, let alone the material world. The material world's one thing, but also, not being disturbed by our own minds is a whole nother ball game. If you can become undisturbed of your mind, the material world is actually easy to be undisturbed by. The mind's actually harder, because mind you got to live with, so to say. One of the best ways to take control of the mind and to learn to be undisturbed by this material world is chanting the Maha Mantra. Learning how to chant it properly. We take our vows to do our 16 rounds a day. They say practice makes perfect. That's only if you're practicing it the right way. If you're not practicing it to try to be, practicing it in the right way, you're never going to advance in it. So the Maha Mantra is very important when you chant it, is that your entire focus is on the mantra. You're not having these thoughts, disturb you that are coming up. When thoughts arise, you have to learn to recognize, okay, those are thoughts. Bring your focus back to the mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You do this over and over and over because it's a training of the mind. It's training of focus. And if you're lazy in your chanting, if you're not giving your full attention to your chanting, then it's very hard to progress, and it's very hard to develop the taste for it. And it's going to show in your activities, throughout your day. Those who are, new to chanting, you get disturbed by all kinds of thoughts. Every single moment you're trying to bring your focus back in, back to the mantra. The trick is not, these thoughts will always arise, but don't follow the thoughts. Recognize that they're there, then bring yourself back to the mantra as soon as you catch yourself, your mind wandering. One of the practices that I like to do is, to help, focus totally in on the mantra. As I'm chanting the mantra, I'm visualizing in my mind the words, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So even my mind is being occupied by the words, by visualizing the words as I'm chanting the Maha Mantra and listening to the sound of the vibration. Helps me keep my mind from wandering, but even with that, my mind still tries to wander now and then. But this practice is not only, trying to do it with your 16 rounds of training your mind. This practice can be taken even after your 16 rounds are done. Because the trick is to be here present with Krishna, to have your mind on Krishna at all times. That's the purpose of Bhakti Yoga. Purpose of training our mind to have our minds on Krishna at all times. So it's like, as Lord Chaitanya says, the only thing you need to do is chant, the Maha Mantra over and over and over. So when you're doing your service throughout the day, for example, when I'm cooking, I'm chanting the Maha Mantra. I'm focusing on the Maha Mantra and listening to the sound as I'm doing my service. And it is the same thing as japa meditation when I'm trying to keep all my focus on the mantra alone, keep my mind from wandering. I'm also doing that during my service and all throughout my day. Because ultimately, if you don't take control of your mind and you allow your mind to be in control, you could be the most disturbed person in the world and be surrounded by luxury. You ever thought about that? There's a lot of people who are surrounding themselves with luxury and just have everything they need, but are totally miserable because of their own mind. Because they don't have control of it. The one who's control of their mind, they could have nothing and be totally happy. That's the pathway of Bhakti Yoga. The nectar that rises in Bhakti Yoga. At first Bhakti Yoga is, very bitter. Devotional service can seem very bitter at first because we're so used to our mind being in control, used to being distracted by all kinds of things. What's on TV tonight? What am I going to have for dinner? What is that person thinking about? Just all kinds of things that distract us, each and every single moment. We're so used to letting the mind run the game, run the show for us. And that's why devotional service can be so hard for the beginners. Because they're not used to having to take control, take the reins and say, no, we're doing this now. But as one learns to control the mind through Maha Mantra and training it to establish focus when you want to focus, because focus is so important, knowing how to focus the mind. Those who have great focus can accomplish great deeds. Those who have great focus can make straight A's in school. Those with great focus can succeed in life. Those that have bad focus have a hard time with making good grades, have a hard time with their daily activities, with their daily service. Trick is turning your mind to become your best friend. Instead of having it be in control, when it's in control, it basically becomes your worst enemy. It's a source of all kinds of suffering. Your mind's always grasping at things. Oh, the temperature's not right. Oh, I think I'm hungry. Oh, I need this, I need that. It's always looking for the next sense gratification. With Bhakti Yoga, you get through the bitterness, train your mind, the nectar begins to rise. The nectar becomes oh so sweet. Because having your mind become your best friend is all worth it. Is all worth the struggle getting there. It's all worth it. Being determined in your chanting, to maintain focus on the words alone and not being carried away by your thoughts somewhere else, no matter what round you're on. So many people, so many Prabhus might, easily get lost in their own thoughts within, the first few rounds that they're doing, just to have the time pass by faster. But that's not helping them. Move on to the next verse. Those who are seers of truth have concluded that of the non-existent there is no endurance, and of the existent there is no cessation. The seers have concluded by studying the nature of both. Purport. There's no endurance of the changing body. That the body is changing every moment by the actions and reactions of the different cells is admitted by modern medical science. And thus growth and old age are taking place in the body, but the spirit soul exists permanently, remaining the same despite all changes of the body and the mind. That is the difference between matter and spirit. By nature, the body is ever changing, and the soul is eternal. This conclusion is established by all classes of seers, or of the truth, both impersonalists and personalists. And the Vishnu Purana is stated that Vishnu and his abodes all have self-illuminated spiritual existence. Jayutamisi Vishnu Bhavanatni Vishnu. The words existent and non-existence refer only to spirit and matter. That is the version of all seers of truth. This is the beginning of the instruction by the Lord to the living entities who are bewildered by the influence of ignorance. Removal of ignorance involves the reestablishment of eternal relationship between the worshipper and the worshipable, and the consequent understanding of the difference between the part and parcel living entities and the Supreme Personality Godhead. One can understand the nature of the Supreme by a thorough study of oneself. The difference between oneself and the Supreme Being understood as the relationship between the part and the whole. In the Vedanta Sutra, as well as in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Supreme has been accepted as the origin of all emanations. Such emanations are experienced by superior and inferior natural sequences. Living entities belong to the superior nature, as it will be revealed in the 7th chapter. Although there is no difference between the energy and the energetic is accepted as the supreme, and the energy or nature is accepted as the subordinate. Living entities, therefore, are always subordinate to the Supreme Lord, as in the case of the master and the servant, or the teacher and the taught. Such clear knowledge is impossible to understand under the spell of ignorance. And to drive away such ignorance, the Lord teaches the Bhagavad Gita for the enlightenment of all living entities for all time. Text 17. Know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Purport. This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is in the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Svetasvatara Upanishad confirms this. Balagra Satta Bhagasya Satya Kapitasya Cha Bhagojivasa Vigyajya Sachanatayaya Kapate. When the upper point of hair is divided into 100 parts, and again, each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is a measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. Similarly, in the Bhagavatam, the same version is stated. Sagra Satta Bhagasya Satamasya Sardyasta Makha Jiva Sukshma Sarupayam Sankyatito Hi Chitkana. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms which are measured as 1/10,000th of the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of the spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body. And this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Ishunaratama Chitasya Vidyatvo Yasmin Pranana Panchanda Samvidvisasya Pranashchitam Sarvam Uttam Prajanam Yasmin Buddhiste Vibhavati Isha Atma. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. It is situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air, encircling pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of a material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures and is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all-pervading, Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body. According to the Mundaka Upanishad, this atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. Because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the materialist scientists, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the supersoul, and thus all the energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. There are the corpuscles, corpuscles, which carry the oxygen from the lungs, gather energy from the soul. This is what really annoys me. This English is probably second, second language. He knows more words in English than I do. When the soul passes away from this position, activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts this importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is a seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules in the sunshine. There are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by the name Prabha, or superior energy. Neither Vedic knowledge nor modern science denies the existence of the spirit soul in the body. And the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself. Text 18. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore fight, O descendant of Bharata. Report. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It is a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, so to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimensions. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation, because the living entity can neither be killed as he is, nor can the material body, which cannot be saved for any length of time, be permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires this material body according to his work, and therefore observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutra, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains the material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and sacrifice the material body for the cause of religion. Text 19. He who thinks that the living entity is a slayer, or that he is slain, does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays, nor not. The self slays not, nor is slain. Purport. When the embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as is evident from the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed, or is supposed to be killed, is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Mahimnisyat Sarva Bhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state, as well as the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Text 20. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying, and permeable. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady, or kutashta. The body is the subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth in the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death, and because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and permeable. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old, as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. The soul is no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and only owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad, we find a similar passage which reads, Na jayate mariate va vipaschan nayam kutaschan vibavu kaschit ajo nitya safato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sarari. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse there is one special word, vipachit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds, or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether a man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of the Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are 2 kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul Anu Atma, and the Supersoul, Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad in this way. Anunayana Mahato Mayana Mahiyan Atmasya Jato Nahito Gayayam Tamak Ratu Pashyati Vitosoko Datu Pasadam Ahimanam Atmana. Both the super soul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires as well as limitations can be, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature, therefore he requires to be enlightened by Krishna, or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Any last-minute questions or comments? Enough time for one more verse. Text 21. Oh, Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in the complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence for another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Certainly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that the violence is for supreme justice. And as such, Arjuna should follow the instructions, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.